Well, now it's one thing to have a map, and quite another to know how to read it. Professor Finch, bless his tweed-jacketed soul, was a master at reading the whispers of history. We spent days in his study, which was a cozier, more organized version of my grandfather's shop, surrounded by books that smelled of vanilla and thyme. Alistair, he insisted I call him Alistair, was a living encyclopedia. He'd point at a faded line on the map and say, "Ah, yes, the old Tanner's Alley. They rerouted the stream in 1888 after the Great Flood. The entrance won't be there anymore. We need to think about what was built on top of it." He taught me to see the town not as it was, but as a living thing, with layers of history like rings on a tree. The journal, combined with Alistair's knowledge, became our guide. We discovered that the Song of Silence wasn't a song at all. Alistair theorized it was the life's work of a 17th-century astronomer and mathematician named Isabella Vance, a woman far ahead of her time. She was a Vespertine, and her work on celestial mechanics and advanced mathematics was considered so revolutionary, so potentially disruptive to the established order, that she chose to hide it. The collectors of her day, an early incarnation of the group I was now facing, wanted to burn it as heresy. The Vespertines, my grandfather among them, had been guarding it ever since. The next clue was in the journal, a poem about a sermon of glass and light. It led us to the old St. Jude's Cathedral in the center of town, specifically to its magnificent stained glass windows. One window, a depiction of St. Francis, had a small, almost imperceptible detail that wasn't in the original designs we'd found in the town archives. A single pane of glass, at the very bottom, was a slightly different shade of blue. It took us an entire afternoon of staring up at it, with Alistair complaining about the crick in his neck, to spot it. That evening, as the last rays of sunlight hit the window, the rogue piece of glass acted as a prism, projecting a tiny focused beam of blue light onto the stone floor. It landed on a specific flagstone, one that was indistinguishable from the others. But when I knelt and ran my hand over it, I could feel a faint, almost worn-away carving. It was a bird, a nightingale. This was getting real by the second. But as we were leaving the cathedral, a chill ran down my spine. Leaning against the car across the street, watching us, was the man with the crescent moon scar on his hand. He wasn't trying to hide. He was making a point. He saw me, and a slow, cold smile spread across his face. He gave me a small, mocking nod, then got into his car and drove away. The message was clear. We know what you're doing, and we're always one step behind. That night, the threats escalated. I got a call. No caller ID. I answered, and a voice, the same chillingly polite voice my grandfather had described in his journal, said, "Mr. Croft, Arthur, you're being very foolish. The Nightingale is not a toy, and Professor Finch is an old man. It would be a shame if his retirement were disturbed. Give us the bird and the map, and you can go back to your quiet, unremarkable life." "Who is this?" I demanded, my hand shaking. "A concerned citizen, a collector of rare and beautiful things. Don't make us come and collect you." The line went dead. I immediately called Alistair, who, to his credit, took the news with a grim resolve. "Well," he said, "that settles it. We're running out of time." It was Alistair who suggested we needed to understand the key itself, the nightingale. We spent hours examining the wooden bird under a magnifying lamp. We discovered that the intricate carvings weren't just decorative, they were a form of microscopic writing. And the stone eyes, Alistair realized, could be twisted. When we turned them in a specific sequence we had derived from a star chart in the journal,
A tiny, almost invisible seam opened along the bird's back. Inside, on a minuscule scroll of paper, was the final piece of the puzzle. It wasn't a riddle or a poem. It was a musical notation, a short, simple melody. "This is it," Alistair whispered, his eyes wide. Isabella Vance was also a musician. This must be the final key. But where was the lock? A tune isn't a key you can put in a door. It was then that Eleanor returned. I hadn't seen her in a few days, and my nerves were so frayed that when she walked into the shop, I nearly jumped out of my skin. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said. "Something like that," I replied, my hand instinctively going to the Nightingale in my pocket. "You've been to the cathedral," she stated. It wasn't a question. "And you've been busy with Professor Finch. The collectors are getting impatient." "Who are you?" I asked, my voice low and suspicious. "How do you know all this?" She gave a small, sad smile. "My name is Eleanor Vance. I'm a descendant of Isabella, and like your grandfather, I'm a Vespertine. We've been watching you, hoping you would be the one to finally see this through. Your grandfather believed in you, Arthur. He said you had his stubbornness, but a kinder heart." She explained that she hadn't approached me directly because she needed to be sure that I was committed, that I wouldn't just sell the bird to the highest bidder. The men in the shop, the man with the scar, they were from a powerful family who had been fighting the Vespertines for generations. They don't want to bury the Song of Silence anymore. They want to possess it. Isabella's work, it's not just about stars, it's about energy, about a power source that could change the world. In the wrong hands, it could be a weapon of unimaginable power. Suddenly, it all clicked into place. The secrecy, the danger. This was so much bigger than a hidden treasure. Eleanor looked at the Nightingale in my hand. "You have the melody?" she asked. I nodded. "Then I know where we have to go." The lock wasn't a door. It was an instrument, a beautiful, ornate harpsichord that had been sitting in the corner of my grandfather's shop the entire time, an instrument that I had dismissed as just another dusty, unsellable piece of furniture. It had belonged to Isabella Vance herself. Eleanor, Alistair, and I gathered in the shop that late night. The air was thick with anticipation. Alistair stood guard at the door, his face pale but resolute. Eleanor, her hand surprisingly steady, sat at the ancient harpsichord. I read out the notes from the tiny scroll. As she played the simple, haunting melody, the shop was filled with a sound that felt both ancient and new. When the last note faded, there was a moment of silence, and then a low, grinding sound echoed from the back of the shop. A section of the wall, a section that had been hidden by a large, heavy tapestry, began to slide inwards, revealing a dark, narrow opening. A set of stone steps led down into the darkness. We had found it. The entrance to the tunnels. The path to the Song of Silence. "They'll know," Alistair said, his voice a hoarse whisper. "They'll have heard that." Eleanor looked at me, her eyes shining in the dim light. "Your grandfather's last entry in the journal. Did you read it?" I shook my head. "He wrote that he was leaving this for you, not just to protect history, but to find a purpose. He regretted the years of silence between you. He said this was his way finally having a conversation with you." The words hit me harder than any threat from a man with a scar. This wasn't just about saving the world or finding a treasure. It was about my grandfather, about understanding the man he was. With a newfound determination, I took a deep breath. I said, "Let's go," grabbing an old oil lantern from a nearby shelf. Let's finish this conversation." And together, the three of us descended into the darkness beneath the shop, the melody of the harpsichord still echoing in our ears. We didn't know what we would find down there, or who might be following us, but for the first time I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The final act was about to begin.